Since the re-election of Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko, that disputed election gave rise to relentless anti-government protests across the country. The latest demonstrations in Minsk echoed similar sentiments. Protesters chanted slogans demanding the president must step down. Riot police personnel fired warning shots in the air. Hundreds of protesters have been detained, and Lukashenko shows no intention of stepping down. Police dispersed protesters who had been marching from Minsk to a Stalin-era execution site. Armed officials chased protesters in a field not far from the Kuropati site, a wooded area on the outskirts of Minsk, where thousands of people were executed during Stalin's purges. The last time a march to this execution site was violently dispersed was in the Soviet era in 1988, when authorities used tear gas on the people. This week, the president partially closed the Belarus border with the Western countries. Lukashenko also replaced his interior minister and made a startling remark that protesters scuffling with the police officers should be left with no hands. Senior police officials have constantly threatened to use firearms against the protesters if required. Videos that have been doing the rounds on social media showed authorities deploying armored all-terrain vehicles with roof-mounted machine guns in the capital, Minsk. Mobile internet services were unavailable in the capital city, and many metro stations were briefly closed. Stay-at-home mother Svetlana Tikhanovskaya has become the face of the opposition movement in Belarus, as she challenged the strongman Lukashenko and was also expected to win the August election. Tikhanovskaya has denounced the poll result and has been backed by Western leaders who refused to recognize the re-election of the 66-year-old president. The situation with the Moscow-backed president refusing to go and the opposition unable to force his removal is stuck in that deadlock. Joining us live on the broadcast this minute is Fred Vier from Moscow. Hi, Fred. Thanks very much for speaking with us. Your initial reaction to what we are witnessing unfolding on the streets of the capital once again, a fresh round of protests, similar demands, deadlines that have been issued for the president to step down have come and gone. The pressure, though, continues on part of the protesters.
Yes, it is. I think you said deadlock or stalemate. There is something like that in the streets of Minsk and some other Belarusian cities right now. But I don't mean to sound pessimistic, but I think the math here does favor President Lukashenko. The numbers of protesters are dwindling. There were 20,000 yesterday. That's way down from the numbers at the peak of the protests. It's been 3 months now, and you always must remember that Minsk is a city of 2 million people. So 20,000 people in one place looks like a lot, but it's a small fraction of the population. Svetlana Tikhanovskaya, the opposition leader, did call for a general strike. That was her ultimatum to Lukashenko. That was 2 weeks ago. There hasn't been any strike that's materialized, not on any scale. And unless the working class joins these protests, they are doomed. For this time around, I think Lukashenko in the long term is definitely doomed. But this particular round of protests isn't likely to achieve its goals. What is remarkable is the determination and persistence of the protesters. They clearly are angry, irreconcilable, and that does speak to a really deep, almost impossible to heal divide in Belarusian society.
That Alexander Lukashenko enjoys support from Moscow is well known, but how far will Russia go in order to back the leader in the face of these demonstrations, given the tensions that we have already seen on the ground?
I think if Russia was going to step in directly with like security force, they would have done that much sooner than this. As I say, these protests are gradually petering out. It's an arm wrestling contest that Lukashenko is winning for now. And I think Russia's problem in the long run is what to do with Lukashenko, his dysfunctional government, his failing economic system. Russia is going to have to step up and do something, and I probably think that whatever kind of mediation Russia engages in, whatever solution they come up with, it's going to have to mean getting rid of Lukashenko.
Fred, we appreciate very much joining us on the broadcast with those perspectives.